Hey, how we all doing? It's a beautiful summer Monday in New York City. Evan and Tiki. Tiki's on assignment today. Like when Tiki doesn't do a show during the summer, he's never on vacation. He's never doing anything like hanging on a beach or just drinking wine. Like he's doing work. So his work today is related to the NFL, and we'll pepper him with questions tomorrow when he's back with us when we're at Jets camp. Good to be back. Good to have Sean back.
Good to be back.
Good to see your beautiful shining face. Good to see everybody. Good to talk New York sports. Because I don't know if you guys feel this way. And I know my kids are probably in the car right now, and they're listening to Daddy talk on the radio. And what I'm about to say, I mean with love. Vacation is not vacation. Coming to work is vacation. Now, I shouldn't say that out loud, but that's the damn truth. Because when you go on vacation with your children, you're working.
Oh, yes, you are.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I got a whole car ride to Lake George on tap next week that I know exactly what you're talking about.
So when anyone says, hey, welcome back from vacation, it's like, no, I'm back on vacation. Now we're going to bitch about the Mets, Yankees, and Malik Neighbors. I mean, it's a completely different world. And we do have a very busy show today. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, old friend Craig Carton to analyze how he did as the Yankee play-by-play voice. We'll also play you some clips coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. I think Tommy and Sean want to fight about something. We'll get to that later. Look, I think it's obvious that the New York Mets had a disappointing West Coast trip. I think that goes without saying, and we will get to that here in the opening of the show. But I also think the Yankees had a disappointing homestand. Let's not forget, the Yankees, while the Mets were away, played bad teams. The Toronto Blue Jays, bad team. The Angels of Anaheim, despite their success recently, bad team. The Texas Rangers, I wouldn't say bad team, I'd say mediocre team. This was a chance, and it obviously continues tonight, to beat up on bad teams. And what I find so perplexing and why I would label what we just witnessed a disappointment is that Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge, Juan Soto's on fire, Austin Wells has been the perfect cleanup hitter when he cleans up. Giancarlo Stanton is back. Like Jazz Chisholm still hits home runs every few days. Carlos Rodon looks good. Garrett Cole came back and looked good till he was pulled. And yet they went 5-4 against crappy teams.
Yeah, Evan, I hate to be this guy and I hate to make excuses, but I'm going to make excuses. The 2 doubleheaders killed him. They absolutely killed him. It's the truth, though. It absolutely killed him.
Because you can't sweep doubleheaders?
You can sweep doubleheaders, but the way the Yankees operate, look, Giancarlo, you just mentioned, who got red hot. He had to sit in a game in each one of those doubleheaders. Will Warren basically gave him no shot that first go-around versus the Angels. Now, after you take Garrett Cole out, you should be winning that kind of baseball game on Saturday, and they didn't. But I think the disruptive week, to me, played more into the Yankees' problems than the Yankees themselves.
So you would not define this. And look, this doesn't mean it's the end of the world. I mean, the Yankees are still right there in the American League East. It's all right in front of them.
Best record in baseball.
That's right. I mean, which is amazing. But when you went into this 9-game stretch, I remember us talking about it on the air. We looked at this and said, this is your opportunity to get fat. This is your opportunity to beat up on crappy teams. And I think a lot of individuals are playing really, really well, and they still went 5-4 against Toronto, Anaheim, and Texas. It's not sounding the alarm bells. It's just an observation that this was a disappointing week if you're the Yankees.
Look, if the word is disappointing, there is no doubt about it. Despite the fact that you come here fresh on a Monday after winning 2 of 3 from Texas, the overall homestand is what you have to look at. I was calling them, the last debate I won with Loogie, the hottest team in baseball. I can't say that
They're
after
not anymore.
the homestand. They're not the hottest team in baseball. But overall, I don't think it's as disastrous, and I refuse to believe that the record would have been 5-4 had they not had those doubleheaders. They'd probably lose the Texas game. It's probably somewhere like 6-3. I think they would have won that second game with the Angels. But nonetheless, it's disappointing. Now, what really bothers me is the fact that the Orioles continue to find ways to lose games, and here we are, despite the bad stretch of baseball the Yankees previously had, getting hot, then this recent homestand, they cannot gain any freaking ground.
Right.
You can never look up and go, they're a game and a half or 2 games up on Baltimore, despite Baltimore's problems. And I just can't help but wonder, with the Yankees not having that tiebreaker, if ultimately these kind of stretches of baseball are what the Yankees are going to rue when they go play Baltimore that final week of the year, if it comes down to it.
No, I think you hit on it, and that's why, look, the Yankees have it all right in front of them. I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Because it also works for the Mets, too, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. Like, it is all right in front of them. They have an opportunity to beat up a historically bad Chicago White Sox team, and they still have a relatively soft schedule over the final month and a half of the season. But you're right in terms of taking advantage of the situation that they're in. I looked at this homestand. It's very different than the Mets. The Mets needed to survive this West Coast trip.
Yeah.
The Yankees needed to get fat. And what I find bizarre watching the Yankees right now, and I have had a lot of faith in them all season long, you've wavered a little bit. You've been like, I'm dead, I'm done, I quit, I'm back, we're going to win the World Series, we're not going to win the World Series. You've been all over the place like this bitch of a hurricane that hit all of us last week. All over the place. Because that thing's east, it's west, it's stopping.
I think it hit Montreal. Where did this thing go?
Montreal?
It boomeranged around everywhere. I looked up at one point. I said, we're getting the tail bottom of it.
What was her name again, by the way? Denny?
Debbie.
Oh, Debbie. Debbie was something else, man.
You have a lot of Aunt Denny's, Evan?
I went to that. I passed a lot of Denny's driving back from North Carolina. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. They missed out on an opportunity. This was a chance to get fat. This was an opportunity to beat up on teams you're better than. And what's kind of tough to wrap my head around is that for a majority of the struggles that the Yankees had, when they were struggling for well over a month and a half, it was easy to pinpoint why. J.D. Davis is batting cleanup.
Yep.
Jahmai Jones is leading off. They have too many easy outs.
Luis Severino said it. They only had 2 hitters, which hasn't been the case now.
It's not the case. Like, this is a completely different Yankee lineup. You feel even better about DJ LeMahieu. Even Gleyber Torres has said a little bit. Anthony Volpe obviously hasn't. You feel good about the cleanup spots. Soto and Judge continue to be monsters. You felt a lot better about Marcus Stroman yesterday. Like, there are so many things individually that are a lot better than what they were a month ago, and they still put together a stretch at home that was very disappointing.
Well, a lot of it is on the pitching. And, yes, Stroman was better yesterday. By the way, they pulled the ripcord to make sure he didn't leave with a sour taste in his mouth, because his previous 2 starts, I believe both were on this homestand, right? Because he started, maybe only one of them, were awful. But the bullpen also continues, outside of Jake Cousins, to be a big, and I can't believe we're trusting Kirk Cousins' cousin, but outside of that, a big hold-your-breath moment. Even the balloon popped on Mark Leiter this weekend, too. So it's just what's up is down. Now they hit, and now the bullpen and the rotation continue to be problems, and they need to right that. Look, if this homestand was supposed to be get fat time, the Angels in a doubleheader proved to be their Ozempic. They just can't gain the weight.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Thank you. Slid it in. And you didn't even see it was coming. I signal.
I did not see it coming. Now, as far as the Mets are concerned, that one's a lot more obvious for all of us. It was a disappointment. Now, when I left about a week and a half ago, I knew this wasn't going to be easy, which is why I was okay with 6-4, 5-5. The idea that this team was going to go out west, I don't care who they're facing, and go 8-2 was never going to be the thing.
Sure.
4-6 is a major disappointment. But what makes it to me an even bigger disappointment is that if the New York Mets are going to make the playoffs, and they better make the playoffs, like, I'm sorry. I love Joe B., longtime partner. When I heard Beningo, and he told me this a week ago, and then he said it on the air, you know what, bro? It's all house money. House money, my ass! If they don't make the playoffs, this would be a massive disappointment considering how far they came, considering the teams they're competing with. But I'll tell you why. More than 4-6. What I witnessed, what we all witnessed over the last 3 days was a massive disappointment. Their identity is very simple. It's not that complicated. We don't need to take 100 phone calls figuring out what the Met identity is. It's their offense. That needs to be their strength. They do not have a great rotation. Do they not have a great bullpen? But they can score runs. You cannot, in a 3-game series, and don't give me this crap that Logan Gilbert and Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo are the 95 Braves.
I mean, my God, that topic this weekend. How could you play? Look how good. Show me all the teams the Mariners have swept, shutting them out for basically 3 games.
Well, they just played the Tigers, and they scored 13 runs in 3 games.
What a nonsensical attempt at rationalizing.
They're a good staff. No one's denying the Mariners don't have a really good pitching staff. They're not the Braves. They're not Johnson and Schilling. They're not Koufax and Drysdale. To get shut out, and quite frankly, they were shut out for 3 games outside of Jeff McNeil's solo shot. That's the part that was so disappointing and concerning. Because if the Mets are going to make the playoffs, if they're going to be the team we fell in love with throughout late June and early July, it's going to be on the backs of an offense that scores run, that doesn't get shut down and go 0 for 16 with runners in scoring position and score 1 run in 3 games. Can't happen.
And to me, that is the most concerning part. I don't even think 4-6 is a huge unmitigated disaster if they were going to get swept by the Mariners, which they did. It's the idea of how inept they looked offensively versus the Mariners.
Because that's their identity.
That's their strength. And obviously, I know it's soreness. You don't want to see Vientos scratched, anything like that. But really, Evan, the problem with losing 4 of 6, Thank God, by the way, they won that Cardinal game on that one-off because
was
that's
a big game, yeah.
right when you look at the tightness of the wild card race. They are about to set up, and I know we're going to get into plenty of this throughout the show, the Oakland-Miami series. After that, it gets damn difficult, including two teams that you're competing with in Arizona and San Diego. They went and turned that trip to 4-6 and looked inept. That offense better wake up quick because I think you might be getting to a point this week, Evan, versus these two teams. Anything short of 5-1 feels like unacceptable.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think 4-2 is still good, but you're right. They have put themselves in a spot where they've got to go out and do serious damage on this homestand, and the only way they're going to do that is by scoring runs. Their starting pitching has been acceptable. It's been decent. Obviously, Sean Manaea had a great run until his recent start. Luis Severino was pitching really well until recently, though I did think his start last night was a lot better. Francisco Lindor screwed him with the defensive miscue in the 6th inning of this game, or the 5th inning of this game. But they've got to score runs. Yeah. That's the identity of the New York Mets. And it's on Pete Alonso to wake up. It's on J.D. Martinez to wake up, because those are the names specifically that jump out at me. Francisco Lindor had 4 or 5 hits in this series. He's been fine.
He's hitting every game.
He hasn't been a problem. Brandon Nimmo's been ice cold for basically 2 months, really since the All-Star break. But to me, it's about Pete and it's about J.D. Martinez. Who knows about Mark Vientos with this ankle issue he's dealing with? But what was concerning and what made this so massively disappointing wasn't 4-6 in particular. It was how it happened.
Yeah.
It's the fact that they didn't hit. And look, you mentioned the Orioles and how the Yankees weren't able to take advantage of the fact that the Orioles have been a mediocre team for a month and a half. You can look at it the same way with Atlanta. The Atlanta Braves lost the game yesterday that is Mets-like in every sense of the word. They blew a huge lead to the crappy Colorado Rockies. It's still all right in front of them, but they missed out on an opportunity to not only build a lead on Atlanta, but cut into the Phillies lead.
Yes.
Because they've played like garbage for a while.
They continue to look awful. You're absolutely right, which is why, anything chasing Philly, and I know Lou Garrett brought that up, that's preposterous. Just worry about keeping Atlanta at bay. But somehow for Atlanta to escape that weekend, a half a game up on the Mets, feels so robbed of everything the Mets built up. How do you not take advantage? And that's exactly where we are. By the way, I don't know if you heard the Michael Tonkin audio yesterday. He did say, hey, after leaving the Mets, one thing's obvious. They only have one good hitter you need to worry about.
You waited all weekend to drop that one in there?
Apparently it didn't hit the way I'd hoped.
No.
I practiced out on the train 4 times.
You're looking for your revenge on Luis Severino's comment.
Might as well play crickets, Rosenberg. Thank you.
Here's the only revenge you need when you're the Yankees. Go win your freaking division and go watch the Mets flounder. That's your revenge.
Yeah.
You don't need to take shots. By the way, I didn't even like when Luis Severino said that last month. I told you I didn't like that.
I set it up. I found Tonkin, played for the Mets. Nobody liked it. Whatever, move on. You got four more hours of bad jokes coming your way.
You picked Michael Tonkin also to deliver it.
Yes, exactly.
Here's the reality. It's a long baseball season. It's a long-ass season. It's 162 games. Both teams have come off a stretch that's disappointing. But here's what both teams have in common. And I'm sorry, I hate to use this quote, but I like wise quotes, especially from people that have accomplished so much. And I need to quote the great Aaron Boone.
Ooh.
It's all right in front of us.
Oh, no.
It's all right in front of us. It's all right in front of the Yankees. You're essentially tied with the Orioles in the American League East. They've been a bad team for a month and a half.
And you guys better figure it out because you got Baltimore quick.
I know. Next week. It's all right in front of us if you're the New York Yankees. Sure, you went 5-4 against crappy teams. It's all right in front of you. Same for the New York Mets. Yes, they went 4-6. Yes, they got annihilated by the Mariners. Yes, they got outscored like 24-1 in a 3-game series. Yes, Pete Alonso is hitless since he hit the 2 home runs in Colorado. Yes, J.D. Martinez is flailing at sliders low and away. But it's all right in front of us. I got to give Aaron Boone credit. As much as he said that while the Yankees were struggling, and it bothered you, and it bothered every Yankee fan out there, it's so true. It's one of the truest quotes I've heard.
It's a cop-out answer because the moment it stops being right in front of you when you're eliminated, everybody goes to vacation. Which, by the way, it should be noted, Evan, you're back. I'm going to be away again next week. We all still remain. We have not made vacation plans for October.
How you feeling confident, Tommy?
I'm feeling great. So I think
you're feeling great.
I think
they just got annihilated by the Mariners. You could at least say, I'm still confident, but I don't feel good today because I just got shoved in the locker by Bryce Miller and Logan Gilbert.
But is not in positive Tommy's vocabulary unless I'm talking about the Olympics. I'll just say that. I would say this. They had a good road trip, all things considered.
They didn't have a good road trip.
4 different cities.
They didn't have a good road trip.
4 different cities.
Tommy, let's just start right there. They did not have a good road trip.
No, they did.
They just got swept by the Mariners.
Okay.
They went 4-6. That's not a good road trip. Now, if you want to say they avoided disaster, yeah, they avoided disaster. But you cannot utter they had a good road trip. I have to fact check you.
You could have said it could have been worse.
Yeah, of course, it could have been. We do instant fact checks around here.
I said,
you cannot say it was a good road trip.
All things considered, 4 different road trips, including going to Colorado where the air is thin.
Where the air is thin.
I'm saying, and then they hit Seattle. They looked a little out of gas over the weekend, I will say that, but I think it was a good road trip.
It was not a good road trip.
They're a half a game out of a wild card spot. You said it going in, they needed to survive. So if you want to say good, survived, however you want to say it, I thought it was a good road trip. I took offense to something you said, though, about 10 minutes ago. They faced 3 guys this weekend, top 25 in ERA. So they did face good starting pitching at the back end of a long road trip, 4 different cities, multiple time zones. They got jerked around.
Tommy, I want to make something clear about the Mariners, okay? A team that, before this season started, actually picked to go to the World Series. So I have nothing but respect for Seattle. I really do. I like them. And I would agree that if we're ranking starting pitching staffs, 1 through 5 in Major League Baseball, like the depth of a staff, I would say the Mariners have the deepest pitching staff in Major League Baseball. I agree with you. No one is besmirching that the Mariners don't have a good staff. What bothers me is the talk like it's Maddox and Smoltz. They're not. Well, they have a bunch of good starting pitchers, but the Mets should not have been annihilated the way they were annihilated over these 3 games. So do not turn this into the Mariners are good. Yes, they're good. You can't score 1 run in 3 games against 3 starting pitchers. This isn't Maddox and Smoltz. I'm sorry.
You're not wrong. And also, I know positive Tommy and plenty of Met fans. What was the calling card for the Mets to revive their season? It was look at how we do versus some of the game's best starting pitchers.
They've done great against
including, hitting the crap out of Garrett Cole and Luis Heel, too.
Dylan Cease earlier this year, yeah.
So suddenly, that calling card of the Mets, you can't suddenly backtrack when you lose to the Mariners in the way you did and say, well, what are we supposed to do? Look at their pitching.
And not only that, Sean, here's the deal with Major League Baseball in 2024 and where this Met team is. If the Mets are going to make the playoffs, if the Mets are then going to shock the world come postseason time, there's only one way they're going to do it. They're going to mash you. That's it. That's the formula. They're going to score runs.
Oh, boy.
They're not winning games 1-0 or 2-1. In fact, look at this season. How often have they done that? The answer is they don't. So the idea of, well, you just got to tip your hat. These are really good starting pitchers. It happens. If that's the case, they're done. If that's the case, they're not making the postseason. Now, I have faith because of something Sean brought up earlier, which is they have had a good track record against good starting pitchers. That was one of the calling cards when they were playing well in June and July. But I don't want to hear this excuse about, well, they're the Mariners. Sandy Koufax faced them on Friday night. Enough.
No, but when did they face him? They faced him after a long road trip where they had to make a pit stop in St. Louis, which is unorthodox. So they caught a team that had a little more pep in their step, a little more energy. First time Sunday Night Baseball was there in, 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
So you had a team that had a little bit more energy. Mets were at the back end. You just said it, Evan, when you got back. You were on vacation last week, but not really. So the Mets were on a long road trip. They were a little out of gas, and they ran into 3 top 25 guys with ERA. And they mowed them down.
By the way, I would admit that I think baseball players probably enjoy being on the road, too. They get away from their wife and kids.
But let's not pretend St. Louis is the moon either.
No, but it's got to affect you a little bit with the time zone. We saw it when they got back from London. We've seen this team have a little bit of jet lag. They're back at home now. The bats will wake up. They're facing inferior teams in Oakland and Miami.
But who does Oakland know well? Who's on the mound tonight?
Paul Blackburn tomorrow. And not only that, the Oakland A's have been a better team than the Mets and the Yankees over the last month and a half. Look it up. The Oakland A's have been a good baseball team. Like, we look at them as like dog crap because of their overall record. The Oakland A's have played well for a month. And oh, by the way, whenever I hear the Mets are playing bad teams, that also makes me cringe. They do terrible against bad teams. What's their record against the Marlins this season? It ain't good. So look, it is all right in front of them. The Mets have a chance, much like the Yankees have a chance, to erase the Big D, which is the disappointment of the last week. Because the Mets had the Big D in their 10-game road trip. I think the Yankees had the Big D over this 9-game homestand. And the good news, to quote the great Aaron Boone, it's all right in front of us. How are you feeling, Met and Yankee fans? We'll get your calls, 888-808-1019. Plus, sometimes like in the movie Rocky, you lose but you really win. And sometimes you win but you really lose. Why yesterday's Yankee victory is causing wide panic amongst Yankee fans in terms of how they won. We'll get to that plus your calls, 888-808-1019.